All right. Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our college essay writing workshop. My name is Evie Hansen. I'm the college and financial aid advisor over at San Mateo High School. And real quick, before I introduce our speaker for today and the logistics, I also just want to say thank you to Aragon High School. They have graciously allowed us to use their Zoom room webinar account for this tonight. So thank you to our friends over at Aragon. And tonight, in a moment, before I introduce speakers, some logistics. As the presentation's going on, there is a Q&A option down there below where you can ask questions. And if it's something more technical or school specific, I'll answer it right there in the chat. If it's something, though, for our presenter, then I will turn my camera back on so she can jump in with the answers. So with that, I will toss the mic over to Rosa Lowe from Miami University, located out in the Buckeye State of Ohio.
Thank you, Evie. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you were able to join us, or me, on this evening. My name is Rosa, and I serve students in here in Northern California, as well as Washington and Oregon, for Miami University, in Ohio. Miami is a public institution, and we're really known for business. And I'm happy to connect with you after the webinar tonight about Miami in case you're interested. But tonight we're keeping it all about college essay writing, as you can see on my screen. So the presentation, as you can see, is with RAC, or Regional Admission Counselors of California. It is an organization of schools. I think it's about 160 schools out here in California who have regional representatives like myself in California, serving California students. And it's an organization that frequently travels together. I think this presentation was actually kind of also found through RAC. So uh, feel free to reach out to any of us at RAC. You can find us online if you have any questions about schools out of state. Many of us are right here in Northern California, and we are happy to meet with you in person if you're interested in one of our institutions. It's just a great organization. So I encourage you to check that out as well. But we will go ahead and get started with the presentation. So I like to first kind of talk about the importance of the Common App essay. And before I get into it, I want to be clear about today's agenda. So today we are talking about the Common App essay. I realize that some students might be looking at, two-year colleges or trade schools, and those are going to be slightly different. But tonight's focus will be on the Common App essay, which is what you see when you apply to a four-year institution. This also does not apply to the UCs. They have their own system going on. But this is for Common App. So the reason we like to read essays from students primarily is to get to know the student. It is not so much to assess your writing, although some schools put a little bit of an emphasis on that as well. But you are applying to college. So, we have a lot to teach you, hopefully, about college level writing. So that's not the main focus. The main focus really is to get to know you. The essay is the only portion of the application where you have a voice and where you can tell us something about yourself that you feel we should know. So, if you think about the Common App, and I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of dive into it yet, but I'm sure you will. If you think about the Common App, all the other sections are data to us from different people at your high school assessing you. So your transcript is a bunch of data assigned to you by your teachers. Your counselor recommendation, it comes from your counselor. You don't even see it. Your SAT, any like standardized test scores, those are from a third party organization and again assigned to you based on your performance on a test. So we see all that. But the essay, and I guess if you think about it, the activities part of the Common App is really your chance to tell us about you in your own words, which is why it's so important. And which is why I think it's the part where students get most hung up on. I understand the pressure, absolutely, but I hope tonight's um, workshop or presentation can kind of alleviate those maybe stressors that you might have about the college app or personal statement. You'll hear me say that was pointed out to me today. You'll hear me say both. Essay, personal statement is the same thing. I'm referring to the same thing, which is the Common App essay. Um, Now, while the essay is important because it introduces you to us in your own words, it is not, there's not going to be a single topic or even a single essay that will automatically get you denied or admitted. It is a part of your application that can have a really important role in certain situations where, maybe that's kind of we're looking for reasons to admit you. The essay can play a really big part in that, but the essay alone is not going to make or break your admission decision, at least in most schools. Um, Whenever I speak about essays, I always want to remind my audience, keep in mind that every institution is different. Every institution is different, and you should always check with the admission counselor from the school that you're applying to about the essay. So this is all very general advice. Um, some schools might have, and then there's schools with supplemental essays as well. But again, tonight our focus is the Common App. We are trying to build a class that has a diverse student body. So we are not looking for anything specific necessarily. So really, this is just your opportunity to tell us about who you are without having the pressure of, a certain having a certain GPA or having a certain SAT or ACT score. This is just you telling us your story. So we're going to go into a little bit of some tips, and we will dive into the structure and some examples later on in the presentation. So this is just kind of like breaking the ice. So, this isn't a research paper. You do not have to have the elements of a research paper or an academic paper in this. Um, the best advice I can give you about writing the essay is keep asking yourself, so what, as you write. When you write a sentence or when you say a statement like I like basketball, ask yourself, so what? Why does that matter? Why does that matter to the reader? When you keep asking that, you'll find that you will end up with a pretty thorough and clear essay on, why the things that you do in your life or the experiences that you've had or the challenges or hobbies, interests, why do those matter in relation to, your admission to our colleges? And I really, I really, really encourage you all to embrace this opportunity for us colleges to meet you again through your own voice. Hopefully, you'll find writing the Common App essay kind of exciting as well, because you're already an expert in the topic, because the topic is you. So hopefully this is also a challenging, but also a enjoyable experience for you as you go through the writing process. So we will kind of go through the essay prompts from Common App. There are 7 of them. We'll go through them kind of individually as if we have the time to do that. But they're all essentially asking the same question, and that is, who are you? What should we know about you that we are not getting from the data points in your application? Um, be sincere and be genuine. I really encourage you to think about the fact that we really aren't looking for anything super specific unless the school tells you that they are. Again, there's always that caveat that every school is different, but unless they tell you they're looking for something specific, we really are just looking to get to know you. We're recruiting you to come to our college campus, so we want to know what kind of a community member you're going to be. We want to know who we're admitting to our college campus, who is making up our next class of first year students. So that's what we're looking at. Um, when you're writing your essay, typically students write, I mean, show, don't tell, right? Use stories from your life. that show your values instead of telling us your values. But then sometimes students kind of get hung up on the story itself, the story of what happened, how you ended up with a certain value, or how you ended up changing your views on something, or whatever it might be. The story in its own is important. It's an important part of your essay, but it is not the main part. So make sure you're focusing on the end result, and the journey, and not just the event that occurred to kind of that served as a catalyst to what you learned. Um, and yeah, you should start early with the Common App. If you are a junior, you can start this summer. It's not too early. The Common App, you can work on it on the Common App, but you can also work on it just on a Google Doc, and just copy and paste your finished essay into the Common App when you actually start working on your application to send it out to the schools. And then some things not to do. Be careful with humor and offensive language, and anything that might come across differently through uh, text when it's written. You all have probably been in a situation, or at least most people have been in a situation where you've been texting with a friend and something that they say comes across kind of weird to you, but then they meant it in a totally different way. Same thing happens to essays. So just be cautious of that. Don't write about another person. This is actually very, very common in essays, is um, somebody will write about their grandma and how great grandma is, which, like, we love hearing about grandmas and grandpas, but they're not the ones applying to our institution. So we want to hear about you. If grandma or grandpa has been an influential part of your life, and you absolutely feel the need to share a story that involves them, just make sure you always tie it back to yourself. And this is also important. Your essay should not be a list of your accomplishments. Those go elsewhere on your application. There is a part that where you can list honors and awards that you've received. There is a part for activities, and you will get a chance to also elaborate on those activities, and you should elaborate on those activities. But the essay is not that. So try to avoid it becoming essentially another resume or a highlight of the things you've done. And consider something, a unique example to tell your story. And I don't mean this in a way that's, you're supposed to somehow wow us, where we, think that you're going to be the next Jane Austen, or the next big writer. It's That's not the point. The point is, it's something unique to you. And again, that can be different for everybody. I just had a student today come up to me and ask if I thought that her essay topic was too general or too broad, but she was really passionate about it, and she felt like it was a unique part of her life. So therefore, it's a great topic. And don't wait until the last minute. Um, a rushed essay typically shows, not just linguistically, but the content. They're typically pretty shallow. We typically don't really learn about the student through those. Um, so, start early. And again, I think this is a great chance for you to challenge yourself a little bit and get to know yourself a little bit better too. As you start thinking about the qualities and the characteristics and everything that makes you you and what you want to share with us, it could actually be quite fun. Um, Okay, so brainstorming. I think this is a good way to start thinking about your essay. And again, the supplemental essays are different. They will ask specific questions. But the main essay on Common App, again, most prompts are asking who are you in just slightly different wordings, and we're gonna get to them in a little bit. And the main goal is to get to know you. So You could start by thinking about your interests and hobbies, what accomplishments you've had so far in your life. But again, not listing them, just for the brainstorming purposes, what kind of accomplishments have you that you're proud of have happened? Your background. This is typically a great place to start as well. Your values, your identity, family dynamics, where you live, where you moved from. Those are all great things to consider. Any struggles you've had. Um, None of this needs to be in your essay. These are just great things to start thinking about to find out, what are the things that you want to communicate about yourself. It's typically a great idea to write about anything that you're passionate about because that usually shows, and it's typically a really easy topic for you to write about. So that's always my tip is find something that you're passionate about and start really digging into, why you're passionate about it, what made you passionate about it, and then how that has shaped you. So your story should tell us how whatever you choose to write on affected you. What did you learn from that experience? How did that maybe shape your worldview or change it? Um, because again, we are trying to get to know you, not how you were 10 years ago or 5 years ago in middle school, but who you are now. So another thing sometimes students kind of do in their essays is they'll tell us a story about when they were 10 years old, and that the whole story kind of revolves around that. There's no progression to the now. So avoid doing that. We want to get to know you as you are right now. Uh, I guess you'll be a senior by the time you'll, submit your essay. So, a senior about to head into college. Okay, so let's go through the Common App prompts. These are already online. So again, if you wanted to start working on your essay this summer, you can find these prompts online. You can pick one and you can start working on it. So the first one is some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, please share your story. Um, think about this prompt and think about something that genuinely is so important to you that you can't leave out, um, that we can't find in the essay in any other section. Clarify why this is so important to you because we won't know unless you tell us. So you need to clarify why this is something, whatever you're telling us is something that you just could not leave out. Um, and then again, don't focus too much on the story. This should be more about, who you are and how whatever it is that you're talking about affected you. The second prompt is the lessons we take from failure can be fundamental to later success. Recount an incident or time when you experienced failure, how did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? I like this one. It's kind of like a job interview question. Tell us about a time that you made a mistake. It's a pretty common job interview question. And as you would in a job interview, it's important that you aren't overly negative about something that affected you this way, or when you experience failure. It's important that you also spin it into an opportunity of growth or maybe a different belief or whatever it might be that came out of that. That's important. So, but also you want to avoid kind of being cliche or fake or just kind of coming up with something on the spot. So, if you can genuinely think of a failure that you faced in life that truly, changed something in you, this might not be the prompt for you. There are seven, so you can choose whatever speaks to you the most. Prompt number three is reflect on a time when you challenged a belief or an idea. What prompted you to act, and would you make the same decision again? This one is kind of a two-part question, so make sure you are answering both parts. When you're writing for any of these prompts, whatever prompt you choose, make sure you periodically glance at the prompt again. It's helpful to go back to the question and think about whether you answered it or not. And that is also true for supplemental essays. Oftentimes you'll see a supplemental essay like, why this institution? You want to make sure you answer that question thoroughly in your essay, and that's the same with this prompt. And I would encourage you to pick either a time when you questioned a person or a group on an idea, or when something or someone caused you to reconsider a belief or an idea. If you kind of start doing both, it might become a little too long. Remember, you only have 650 words for this essay. It's not actually that much. Those words will go by quick. So that's why it's important that you pick a topic that, speaks to you and that you feel that you can write about, but also that you are concise with your storytelling. We don't want this to become a preachy or judgy essay. We want this to focus on you. So, but this is kind of a good one to pick. You just want to make sure you answer the question or questions in this case. Prompt number four asks you to reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? You are probably noticing a theme in these prompts by now. It's the last part of the prompt is always a question about how this changed you, how did it affect you, how do you feel about it now, asking you to reflect. And here in this prompt, I would say notice the keyword surprising. So you want to make sure that, whatever it is, it's kind of a little bit unexpected. It's all very objective. So, don't spend too much time worrying about whether, something you're writing about is unique or unexpected or surprising enough. If you feel that way, then that's great. But I think it's just we just want to avoid like cliches, I think. Um, but again, same with this one. This kind of has a risk of, slipping into talking about the thing that made you happy, or thankful, or the someone who, done this thing that did this thing to you. So make sure you always tie it back to yourself and your reflection. Prompt number five is discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself and others. Um, it it probably sounds a little repetitive at this point, but truly, these are all kind of, to me at least, very similar questions, just worded in a different way. But again, something that changed or enriched your understanding. And don't feel the need to, this can be a small thing that happened to you, or kind of like an everyday thing. It doesn't have to be um, something super grand. Sometimes that's also the thing that students get hung up on, is that they feel like their story or idea or experience wasn't like unique or dramatic enough. That's not really the point. The point is for you to be able to talk about it in this way. So, sometimes, sometimes other people can help with this too, friends and family. And we'll get to that later too. But yeah, don't overthink. Even though they have kind of these keyword words of that make them seem a little bit bigger than they maybe are, don't get hung up on those. Prompt number six is describe a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time? Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Again, kind of a two-part question, so make sure you answer both of these. Um, and if you choose something academic, and if you're really excited about the school that you're applying to, just make sure you're not like name dropping any professors or anything for this one because your Common App essay is going to all the schools that you're applying to. So, as opposed to the supplemental essay where you should be name dropping anything that you any person you know that's at the school and any class that you're interested in and things like this. This is not the time. So this should be something, some students really genuinely enjoy studying a topic on their free time, or maybe you're interested in uh astrology or something like that. But again, don't spend most of your time describing, if it's astrology, don't spend half of the essay describing astrology. Tell us why you're interested in it and, why does it captivate you? Prompt 7, I think, is the most difficult out of all of them. It's share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. And the reason I think this is probably the most difficult one is because it doesn't have a question to go back to. So this is the easiest one to kind of start writing anything and everything and then it becoming something where we end up not really learning about you. Sometimes we'll see this prompt in an academic essay. Sometimes we'll see this prompt in a poem or I once saw something off of Reddit copied under this. So um, you know, if you do this one, make sure you're still answering the question, who are you? And what made you this way? Because that's ultimately what we want to know. Okay, let's look at some common issues through some examples of what kind of students trip on sometimes. So fluff. Again, 650 words is not that much. You want to be very, very concise. You want all your words to be impactful. And you also want all of them to be words that you would use in, your essays in high school or even when you're talking. You know, don't try to don't try to make it overly complicated. If you feel like you have to add fluff to meet the 650 words, you probably don't have enough content. On the contrary, don't be too vague. So here the person says, I like a lot of things about basketball. The activity allows me to develop abilities that will help me in my future endeavors. Here, I think we would want to know what those abilities are. And this is why it might be helpful to keep asking the so what question to make sure you get kind of deeper into what you're trying to say. Avoid saying general things like stuff or things, aspects, society, things that leave the reader guessing. Um, so here you can kind of see the person on the example that we want to do is they list out the abilities that they feel like they gain from basketball and then why those abilities matter. I'm a better communicator, I'm a better leader, but why does that matter? Because that will make me a better business major. I would even go one step further. Why does that matter? And tell us how that's going to make you a better business major. But you get the point. Cliches was the other thing I mentioned. Same thing with quotes. Um, you You absolutely can use quotes. Just make sure you really make it clear why that specific quote is found on your essay. Um, yeah, kind of same with cliches. You can you can talk about things in your own words, and it's better to do it that way. This in this left example of kind of what not to do. Um, they're kind of using a lot of sayings. So you want to avoid that too. You know, I mean, we've all been there. We're writing an essay with a certain word count minimum, maybe, and we're kind of making a sentence a little bit longer by adding some things around it that don't really need to be there. Try to avoid that. Adjectives, adverbs, they're good for painting the picture sometimes, but especially in this left example that we see here, this person does not really sound like a 17-year-old to me. And I'm not saying that to doubt anyone's writing abilities. But we often also look at the writing in the context of the entire app. So we also see your writing under the activities list. We also see your writing in additional information. So if your essay looks like the text on the left, but then, your additional information and activities look more like the text on the right, we're kind of getting the idea that you're using words that you probably aren't using on a daily basis. And then that's not really your authentic voice that we want to hear through the essay. So it's also important to focus on one story and one at one place and time. Sometimes it's hard to get the point across when you're jumping from one story to another, or you mix in two different stories, trying to arrive in the same conclusion. So it really is okay to just pick one event or thing or experience or failure or hobby, interest, whatever it is, and stick with that. You don't have to try to pack in a ton of different stuff that happened to you or you want to share. Um, just pick the most important one. Or the one that you're most passionate about. That's my advice. Um, you can kind of follow this format in your essay. So status quo, who were you before this event? Again, this can kind of go back in time. That's okay. We can jump back a little bit to get the idea. Then what happened? What's the event that changed you or challenged you or whatever? Um, and then why is it important? How did it become important to you? And then what was the realization that followed? What's the change in you or the growth or whatever it is that happened within you with this new information that you received? And then who are you now? What's different about you? And why does that matter? That is the part that I would encourage you to focus on the most as well. So there is a really, really helpful website or organization called the WOW Writing Workshop, and we're going to take a look at something that they have that is really, really helpful. So you can just write this on there, or you can find this on their website. It's the WOW College Essay Experts. You can see the address up here. They have, and you can get this for free, by the way, so definitely check it out. They have this 10-step um, college essay tip sheet that breaks it up in 10 steps and in three different parts. This is kind of saying the same thing that we've been going through in our presentation tonight. But what I like about this is it makes you do three different drafts for your essay. And the first one, it encourages you to just kind of like write everything. Just get it all on paper. There's a saying in the writing world that you can't edit a blank page. And that I think is great for college essay writing as well. Just get your ideas out there first and then get going from there. Start from there. These, if you follow these 10 steps, this gives you a lot of opportunity to kind of review and tweak some things. Um, and for the last part, for the proofreading and kind of the polishing, you can even ask for some help, maybe from an English teacher or maybe if you have a parent who's a really good writer, just like linguistically. But I think this is great for getting started with the content. They also have a little brainstorming sheet somewhere on their website as well. So make sure you check them out. We had a call with the founder of the WoW writing workshop, and they really do have some great free resources for high schoolers out there. So this is just one of them. All right. And then who can help you if you're kind of stuck, if you need some help? Friends and family are a great place to start. They know you. They probably think you're amazing. So, start by picking at their brains. What kind of characteristic or qualities or personality traits are something that they think, you should highlight in yourself. Um, or, family members especially can be helpful in recounting those events or memories that, shaped you into you. They can even kind of offer some more details or insight into what happened, especially if it was kind of like a longer time ago. So they're a great resource for you to start brainstorming. If you have friends who are also applying to college this fall, get together and do kind of like a group brainstorming session. Take those sheets out. I can share these slides with your counselor later, so they can send them to you if you want to, but or take the WOW workshop brainstorming sheet and just start brainstorming together. And then you can point things out about each other and kind of give feedback to each other. That's a great way to kind of get things going. Oftentimes, students say that starting is kind of the hardest part, or they don't really know how to start their essay. So that's a great way to do it. And then, like I said, teachers can help you with the linguistic part of the essay. So, for grammar, spelling, language, all those things to make it kind of polished and neat. This is also why it's important you start early. Because if you're doing the essay last minute, chances are that your counselor is not available to help you or your teacher's not available to help you. Because, especially if you're doing those early rounds, Christmas break is coming up and they're trying to wrap up their work. So, make sure you start early. Ideally, if you had a draft over the summer, you could have your teacher look over it right when school starts, when they're not yet super busy. And then counselors and college admission professionals like myself and my colleagues over at RAC can help make sure you're on the right track and provide kind of a big picture feedback about whether or not the essay is accomplishing what or you want it to accomplish, and then what the audience wants to hear. So, you have a great counseling team at your high school, so make sure you utilize your counselors. And I guarantee you have admission reps coming to visit your school this fall. So, especially if you're applying a little bit later, or not even necessarily later. I mean, I think the first deadlines for a lot of schools are in November and even December. Some schools are, of course, earlier than that. Always check with the institution. But, when we're coming to your school, come ask us about your essay, or, what we think about your essay or what we think about generally about the essay. I personally have worked for one other institution, which was a small private liberal arts institution, and very similar to how I'm reviewing essays now, maybe a little bit more focus on the actual writing of the essay, the writing sample. But a lot of us have great experience and have read essays from students from all over and for multiple institutions. So definitely reach out to us as well for any advice. I just had a student today, I had another essay workshop, and a student today came to me and showed me the draft that she had been working on, and we talked about it. So we're happy to do that. All right, and then AI. There are even institutions that use AI in their reading process. My institution currently it isn't one of them, at least in the essay part of the application. But AI can actually be a helpful tool for you, especially if you're kind of savvy with it and you know the little quirks of, it can get stuff wrong. Don't, always double check and things like that. But if you know how to use it, AI can be a great source for you to use when you're brainstorming ideas or, when you're kind of trying to find ways to convey an idea or when you're kind of getting started. That's when I think AI can really be effective if you like using it and if you're used to using it. Um, but don't write it or don't use it to better your writing or better your ideas, because what happens easily is it takes away from the authenticity and it takes away from your message and your voice, and we don't want that. I would almost rather read an essay that has maybe a little spelling error than an essay that is completely polished and written almost entirely by like ChatGPT. So, it's a great resource for you to use. Um, some again check with the institution that you're applying to. Some schools are really strict about it. Some schools know that students use it and are okay with it, but maybe check for the percentage of the content that was created by AI. But really, I want you to think of it as your assistant in this process, that but to don't let it take away your voice, because we really do just want to hear from you. um the other thing that you could argue is if you use AI and we know it's all AI, which is pretty easy to spot. I'm sure you've all read something and your immediate thought was this was written by ChatGPT. It kind of brings the question of your work ethic, and what you when you're coming to our campus, will the work that you do be yours, or will it also, go through ChatGPT? So just keep that in mind. We want to get to know you, but we are also considering you for admission to our college campus and whether or not you can do the work on our college campus. So your application should also reflect on that. So, kind of in conclusion, we're coming to the end of our workshop today. I want to make sure we leave some time for any questions that you all may have. But writing in your unique voice that's still clear and concise and, accurate, is the best way to tell your story. Um, you can take recommendations from teachers and friends and family, but don't let them change the essay, and don't let any hearsay about certain topics being um too popular or too used to sway your decision about writing about something that's important to you. Um, Make sure you sound like yourself. And that's also a good way to use friends and family is letting them read your essay and kind of see what they think, and if it sounds like you. And if it doesn't, then, maybe how could it sound a little bit more like you and your voice? So over editing is also a thing. We don't actually want super polished essays from everybody, because we know that's not authentic. We know that's not realistic. So that's kind of all I have to say about the Common App essay. So I would love to hear any concerns or questions that you guys have about the essay or the application. You can write them in the chat or. Oh, well, I guess, yeah, that's the only option, right?
I think it's Q&A. I think the way the chat's set up,
Q&A.
only
Okay.
you and I can, but they can do Q&A.
Okay.
So thank you, Rosa, for
Q&A.
that great presentation. While people are thinking of questions to type in, actually, here's one that comes to mind. I apologize if you said it in the presentation, I might have missed it, but every year I always have some students who think, oh, what if I write one essay, submit it to one school, then change it for another? From your perspective, if you got the general Common App essay, not like a supplemental one, that
Mhm.
clearly was written like they were writing it purely for like Miami's eyes, like how do you
Mhm.
all view that from your perspective?
Um, well, I think that's kind of a disservice to the student. I don't, again, kind of going back to my point, your essay is not going to make or break your admission decision, right from the bat, because again, your application is go at least at Miami goes through a holistic review process, which is taking into consideration all of the parts of the application. But if you're writing an essay with a specific school in mind, then you are kind of falling into that writing what you think we want to hear. And we don't want that. No school wants that. So I think it's great if you get some advice from admission officials. And different story if the school that you want to apply to has some sort of specific instructions for their comment. Probably not. Common App prompts are supposed to be general and something that you send to multiple schools. It's usually the supplemental essays that have the specific instructions. But yeah, I don't think any of us would want you to write with like the specific reader in mind in the sense that it kind of takes away from the authenticity of the story.
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect.
So far, none yet. We're asking people, please feel free to put your questions in Q&A. It's not very often you get a Common App reader right here to pick their brain. Usually it's they're visiting the school or college fair, and there's like a tons of other voices asking questions as well. So
True.
we're gonna keep it open for a little bit. If people think of questions they want to type in
I
anything.
will also
Yes.
say, since we're waiting for some questions, I do hope you ask some questions. I'd love to hear from you. But the other thing I wanted to say when I do these workshops is I understand there's a lot of pressure on the essay because, again, it's something that you're creating. It's not something that, all the other things that we see in your essay is kind of work that you've already done. It's your grades, it's your, counselor and teacher recommendations are kind of, they probably think of you over the years if they've gotten the pleasure of knowing you for throughout high school. But, you know, we as admission professionals often don't spend that much time on your essay. Overall, I think most admission professionals probably spend about 5 to 7 minutes on an application, and out of that, it's maybe a minute or two on your essay. So I hope that gives you some relief that it is not going to be the culmination of your application and even though you did everything perfect up until the essay, that can make or break it. That's absolutely not the case. So hopefully that takes off some of the pressure from writing this Common App essay and hopefully again you are able to enjoy the process a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you. Come on, people. It's your chance to ask questions. We'll give it another minute or so. If we don't get any more, then I guess that's gonna be it. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that might be good for those who might watch this later on video.
Yeah.
I guess would you, in general, maybe not you specifically, well, for you, Rosa, but also what you're aware of your colleagues, like would a admissions rep give our students feedback on their essays in advance, or are you gonna punt that, tell them to go speak to teachers and other people in their lives?
I mean, I just did today. I think it kind of, I think it depends on the rep. I think if a student comes to me and asks me for my help and my expertise in literally something that, people in my professional review, I'm more than happy to help them. Um, yeah, I would say probably depends on the rep, but I will definitely gladly help students. And these essay workshops are great, a great chance to even, if they're in person, especially to catch the rep and just kind of be like, hey, what are your thoughts on my draft if you have one?
Ooh, I have one more question comes to mind, and then if we get no more, I'll let you go and get back to your evening.
Sounds
Um,
good.
Well, I guess two-part question. So one, you represent Miami out here on the West Coast. You're in California. You represent Miami for some other West Coast states, I assume, not just California?
Yeah, Washington and Oregon.
Okay, perfect. So I'm curious from your perspective, are there any things that you see come through from your California applicant essays compared to Washington, Oregon that maybe show people are accidentally applying UC PIQ approaches to Common App that you're like, oh, our kids should watch out and be mindful not to do that?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I have not noticed. I
Okay.
think students have done a pretty good job at recognizing that the UC system does things very differently, and those questions are totally different. I think also colleges that are, on the Common App, and if there's ever a chance to kind of speak to students who they know that, California students are likely applying to a lot of the UCs. They do a pretty good job of distinguishing that, whatever the Common App asks you is totally different from the UCs. Although, if and sometimes when you get waitlisted at the UCs, which happens often, let's be honest, it happens often to students, even uh, here in California, applying to UCs when you get waitlisted, my understanding is that that's when they actually do ask you to write a supplemental or kind of like a why us essay. Um, and that's when you kind of get a chance to maybe do something similar that you're doing to the Common App or like other supplemental essays. But yeah, my understanding is that the PIQs are kind of a different thing. So I have not seen a lot of mix up in that. The Common App essays from California, and Oregon and Washington have been pretty good. Sometimes I see, and this is not California, but sometimes I see students writing the Common App essay to a specific school, like name dropping the school, because they don't realize that it goes to every school that they apply to. So yeah, making sure, especially with that last prompt, because it is so vague, that's when they typically kind of you know, sometimes name drop a school, which, it happens. But the other thing, I guess on that topic is a girl was asking me today at my earlier workshop, if she should tie in some of her academic or work experience into her essay. So I think, we don't I think there's still this understanding that it needs to kind of be a resume. Like, okay, yeah, they want to hear about who I am and whatever, but like, where do I put these accomplishments? So I really want to stress that this is not intended to be that. Your application is essentially a resume on its own, and we can see all those great things that you did. And this really should just be this really, there's no trick to it. We just want to know you and get to know you.
Awesome. Very well said. Well, thank you so much, Rosa, for joining us tonight. I appreciate it on behalf of our
Thank
district,
you.
and we'll be sharing this video with all our students at our schools in a couple days. Those of you live in the chat, if you want the video later on, just check in with my counterpart at your respective school. So, thank you all for joining us. Let me stop the recording.